Don't look behind you. Whatever you do, don't turn around. It's already too late anyway. Please like and subscribe because it's completely free.
I thought I was getting free coffee every week. Turns out, I was being watched the entire time. And when I finally realized what was happening, it was already too late. My name's Maya, and I've been pulling the opening shift at Riverside Coffee House for almost 3 years now. I'm talking 5 a.m. starts, which most people think is brutal, but honestly, I love the quiet. The empty streets, the sunrise through the windows, the smell of fresh coffee before the morning rush hits. It's peaceful, or at least it used to be. This whole thing started around 6 weeks ago. I was working the register when this order came through our mobile app. Nothing unusual at first. A medium caramel latte with oat milk and a blueberry muffin. Pretty standard morning order. But here's the weird part. The customer never showed up to claim it. I waited about 20 minutes, checking the name on the order. It just said MR. And eventually, I had to toss the drink and give the muffin to my coworker. Mobile orders get abandoned sometimes, people change their minds or forget, so I didn't think much of it. Then, it happened again. Same exact order, same exact thing, paid for through the app, never picked up. By the third time, I started to notice a pattern. Same order, always on a Tuesday or Thursday, always around 5:30 a.m., and always under the name MR, but nobody ever came to get it. I mentioned it to my manager, and she just shrugged and said, as long as they're paying, who cares? So I stopped worrying about it. Free latte and muffin every few days? I wasn't complaining. This went on for almost a month. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, the order would come through, I'd make it, and then I'd drink the latte and eat the muffin during my break. It became this little ritual I looked forward to. But then, one morning, everything changed. It was a Thursday, around 5:45 a.m., and the order had just come through as usual. I made the latte, set it aside with the muffin, and went back to prepping for the morning rush. That's when I noticed something on the order screen that I hadn't seen before. There was a note attached to the order. It said, "Hope you're enjoying these, Maya. You deserve them." My blood went cold. The app doesn't show employee names to customers. There's no reason anyone ordering through it would know who's making their drink, especially not at 5:30 in the morning when I'm the only one there. I stood there staring at my phone, reading and rereading that message, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a coworker playing a prank, but nobody else was scheduled that early. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. For the rest of my shift, I kept glancing at the door, wondering if someone was watching me. When I got home that afternoon, I found something that made my stomach drop. Sitting on my apartment doormat was a coffee cup sleeve, one of ours from Riverside Coffee House, and written on it in black marker were 4 words, "I see you, Maya." I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking the locks on my doors and windows, peeking through the blinds every time I heard a noise outside. I wanted to call the police, but what would I even say? Someone bought me coffee and left a cup sleeve at my door? It sounded ridiculous even in my own head. The next morning, I almost called in sick, but I needed the money, and part of me thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just some creepy customer who had a crush on me and didn't know how to express it properly. I was wrong. That Thursday, the order came through again. Same drink, same muffin, but this time there was another note. "You missed something important last week. Check the storage room, second shelf from the bottom, behind the syrup boxes." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. Someone had been inside the shop. Not just inside, they'd been in the back, in the storage room where customers aren't allowed. I went back there immediately, my heart pounding in my chest. I moved the syrup boxes aside, and that's when I found it. A small black camera, no bigger than a button, wedged between two bottles. I dropped it like it had burned me. Someone had been watching me, recording me. For how long, I had no idea. I called my manager right away, and she told me to call the police immediately. They came within 20 minutes, took the camera as evidence, and started asking me questions. Had I noticed anyone suspicious? Any customers who seemed too interested? Anyone following me? I couldn't think of anyone. Riverside gets hundreds of customers a day. How was I supposed to know who was watching me? The police told me they'd investigate, check the camera for fingerprints, and review our security footage. But they also warned me that without more concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested I vary my routine, maybe stay with a friend for a few days. I thought that was the end of it. I thought removing the camera would make whoever this was back off. But 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. You shouldn't have involved them. Now I have to change the plan. I immediately showed the police, and they traced the number, but it was from a burner phone, untraceable. That's when things got really bad. The next morning, I came into work to find that someone had broken into the shop overnight. Nothing was stolen, but my locker in the back was forced open. They went through my things, my jacket, my bag, everything, and they left another note taped to the inside of my locker door. I know where you park. I know where you live. I know your schedule better than you do. Stop fighting this. I broke down right there. My manager sent me home and told me not to come back until the police figured this out. The police finally got a break 3 days ago. They managed to pull data from the camera and traced it back to a purchase made online. It led to an address about 15 miles outside the city. When they went to investigate, they found a man named Marcus Reynolds, mid-30s, unemployed, no prior criminal record. But when they searched his place, they found dozens of photos of me. Pictures outside my apartment, outside the coffee shop, at the grocery store. Some of them went back almost 6 months. He'd been following me long before the coffee orders started. The police arrested him on stalking and harassment charges. During questioning, he told them he'd become fascinated with me after I served him coffee one morning. He said he felt like we had a connection, and he wanted to do something nice for me to get my attention. When I didn't acknowledge him, because I never even knew who he was, he decided to escalate things to make me notice. The scariest part, I still don't remember ever serving him. He was just another face in the morning rush, and that was enough for him to build this entire obsession. Marcus is in custody now, waiting for trial. The police told me to get a restraining order, which I did, and I've moved to a new apartment. I quit my job at Riverside. I couldn't go back there after everything that happened. I don't sleep well anymore. Every time I hear a noise outside, I freeze. Every time I get a notification on my phone from a number I don't recognize, my heart races. I thought I was getting free coffee, but I was really just being hunted. And the worst part, I never saw it coming. They told me the gas station was just 2 miles down the road, but when I finally found it, every door was locked, every light was off, and there was fresh blood on the pump handle. That's when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. My name's Jake, and I've been doing food delivery for the past year while I figure out what I actually want to do with my life. I dropped out of state university halfway through my junior year. Long story, not relevant. And now, I'm that guy driving around town at midnight with someone's pad thai in my back seat. Look, it's not glamorous, but it pays my rent and gives me time Thursday through Sunday nights from about 8 p.m. until whenever the orders stop coming in. Sometimes that's midnight, sometimes it's 3 a.m., depends on the night. This whole thing started about 3 weeks ago on a Sunday. It was one of those dead nights where I'd only done maybe 4 deliveries in 3 hours. I was about to pack it in when I got one last order, a pizza delivery to an address way out on Route 47. For anyone not familiar with my area, Route 47 is this 2-lane highway that cuts through basically nothing. Woods on both sides, no streetlights, barely any houses. It's the kind of road where you don't see another car for 20 minutes at a time. The delivery address was for a place called Hillcrest Cabin, and the GPS estimated about a 35-minute drive one way. I almost declined it, but the payout was decent, and it was either that or go home early with barely anything to show for the night. So I grabbed the pizza from Mario's and headed out. The drive started off fine. I had my music going, the pizza was hot in the thermal bag, and the GPS was leading me down Route 47 like it was supposed to. About 20 minutes in, though, my phone lost signal completely. The GPS froze on the screen, showing me in the middle of a blank area with no roads around me. I wasn't too worried at first. I figured I'd just keep going straight until the signal came back. That's when my gas light came on. I'd been meaning to fill up earlier but forgot, and now I was out in the middle of nowhere with maybe 20 miles left in the tank. I started doing the math in my head. Could I make it to the delivery and back to town without running out? Probably not. I kept driving, hoping I'd see a gas station, but there was nothing, just trees and darkness and the occasional reflective sign warning about deer crossings. Then, maybe 5 minutes later, I saw headlights behind me. A car had appeared out of nowhere and was following pretty close. Too close, honestly. I sped up a little, and so did they. I slowed down, thinking maybe they wanted to pass, but they slowed down too. They just stayed right there on my bumper, high beams on, basically blinding me through my rearview mirror. This went on for at least 2 or 3 miles. My heart was starting to race, and I kept checking the mirror, trying to see who was driving, but the headlights were too bright. Then, just as suddenly as they'd appeared, they turned off onto a side road and disappeared. I let out this huge breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, but I was still rattled, and now my gas light was dinging at me every few seconds. That's when I saw them. 2 people standing on the side of the road, lit up by my headlights. A man and a woman, both probably in their 50s, waving their arms at me like they needed help. The woman came up to my car immediately, smiling way too wide for someone stranded on the side of the road at 11 p.m. "Oh, thank God," she said. "We've been stuck out here for an hour. Our car died just up ahead, and we can't get a signal to call anyone." The man stayed back by the shoulder, hands in his pockets, just watching me. I told him I didn't have a signal either, but that I could give them a ride to the nearest town once I finished my delivery. That's when the woman said something that made my stomach drop. "Actually, there's a gas station just 2 miles down this road. If you could just give us a ride there, we'd really appreciate it. We can call a tow truck from there." I'd been driving on Route 47 for almost 30 minutes. There was no gas station, but she said it so confidently, so casually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I told her I hadn't seen a gas station, and she laughed, this weird, forced laugh, and said, "Oh, it's easy to miss. It's tucked back off the road a bit. There's a turnoff coming up on the left. You'll see it." The man still hadn't said a word. He just stood there, staring at me. I told them I couldn't help them, that I had a delivery to make and was low on gas myself. The woman's smile disappeared immediately. "You sure about that?" she asked, and her tone was completely different now, cold. I didn't answer. I just rolled up my window and drove off. I kept checking my mirror for the next few miles, expecting to see them running after me, or that car from earlier to show up again, but there was nothing. About 10 minutes later, my phone signal came back, and the GPS recalculated. Turns out I'd driven past the turnoff for Hillcrest Cabin about 5 miles back. I turned around, found the cabin, dropped off the pizza to a very confused elderly man who hadn't ordered anything, and got the hell out of there. The whole delivery was wrong. Wrong name, wrong address, something. By the time I made it back to town, I was running on fumes. I pulled into the first gas station I saw and just sat there for a minute, trying to process what had happened. Here's the thing that kept bothering me though. That woman had been so specific about the gas station 2 miles down the road. She'd even mentioned a turnoff on the left. I couldn't let it go. 2 days later, I went back out to Route 47 in broad daylight. I know, stupid, but I had to see if there really was a turnoff where she'd said it would be. And there was. About 2 miles from where I'd seen those people, there was a narrow dirt turnoff on the left side of the road, almost completely hidden by overgrown bushes. There was no sign, no indication of what was down there, just a dirt path disappearing into thick woods. I sat there in my car, engine running, staring at that path. Every instinct told me to leave, but curiosity won out. I turned onto the path. The road was bumpy and narrow, barely wide enough for my car. Branches scraped against both sides, and I had to go maybe 5 miles an hour to avoid getting stuck. After about a quarter mile, the path opened up into a small clearing, and there it was, an old abandoned gas station, the kind you see in horror movies. Rusted pumps, boarded up windows, weeds growing through the concrete. There was a faded sign that said Morton's Fuel hanging crooked above the door. But here's what made my blood run cold. The place wasn't completely abandoned. There were tire tracks in the dirt, fresh ones, and when I got out of my car to look closer, I saw that the door to the station wasn't boarded up like the windows. It was just closed. I walked up to the nearest pump, and that's when I saw it. Blood, fresh blood, smeared across the handle of the pump. I didn't stick around to investigate further. I ran back to my car and got the hell out of there. When I got back to town, I went straight to the police station. I told them everything, the couple on the road, the gas station, the blood. They took a report and said they'd send someone out to check it out, but they didn't seem particularly concerned. One officer even suggested the blood might have been from an animal. Maybe, but I don't think so. I did some research when I got home. Turns out Morton's Fuel had been closed for almost 15 years after the owner, a guy named Richard Morton, disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Police searched the property, but never found any evidence of foul play. But here's the really messed up part. When I looked up missing persons cases in the area, I found 3 separate incidents over the last decade where drivers reported being flagged down by a couple matching the description of the people I'd seen. 2 of those drivers ignored them and kept going. The 3rd driver stopped to help. His car was found abandoned on Route 47 2 days later. He was never seen again. I haven't done any deliveries on Route 47 since that night. I decline every order that tries to send me out there, even if it means losing money. The police called me last week to say they'd checked out the gas station and found nothing unusual. No blood, no signs of recent activity. They said I must have been mistaken, but I know what I saw, and I know those people are still out there, standing on the side of that road, waiting for someone else to stop. Don't be that person. I watched the elevator doors close on an empty car. 30 seconds later, they opened again on my floor, and there was a woman inside, staring directly at the camera. The elevator never stopped between floors. My name's Derek, and for the past year, I've been working as an overnight attendant at the Riverside Plaza parking garage in downtown. It's one of those massive 6-story structures attached to an office building, the kind that's packed during business hours but turns into a ghost town after 9 p.m. I'm 28, and this definitely isn't what I thought I'd be doing with my life, but the pay is decent and the work is easy. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and honestly, most nights I just sit in the booth watching Netflix and doing hourly patrols. The garage has maybe 20 cars total overnight. People who work late shifts or residents from the apartments across the street who rent monthly spaces. During my patrols, I check that all the stairwell doors are locked, make sure nobody's sleeping in their car, and verify that the elevator is working properly. It's boring work, which is exactly why I took the job. No drama, no stress, just 8 hours of solitude and podcasts. This happened about 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday night. It was the middle of October, and we'd just had the first real cold snap of the season. The kind of night where you can see your breath and the wind cuts through your jacket. I clocked in at 10, did my initial walkthrough, and settled into the booth around 10:30. There were exactly 14 cars in the garage that night. I counted them during my patrol like I always do. Everything was normal until about 1:15 a.m. I was watching a video on my phone when I heard the elevator chime. The sound echoed through the garage, that familiar ding that announces the doors opening. The thing is, I was on level 2, and the booth has a direct view of the elevator bay. I looked up expecting to see someone getting off, but the doors opened to reveal an empty car. The doors stayed open for maybe 5 seconds, then closed again. The elevator descended. I went back to my phone, figuring someone on a lower level had called it. 10 minutes later, it happened again. The elevator came up to level 2, doors opened, nobody inside, doors closed. This time, I actually stood up and walked over to look. I checked the indicator panel above the elevator doors. It showed the car was now descending to level 1. I have access to a security camera system with feeds from each level, the stairwells, and inside both elevators. I pulled up the camera car on my monitor. The car was empty. I watched it reach level 1, doors open to an empty floor, then close again. The elevator began ascending. Level 2, level 3, level 4. It stopped on level 5. The doors opened, and there was a woman standing inside. She was facing the camera directly, just standing there in the middle of the car, wearing a long, dark coat. Her hair was wet, like she'd been out in the rain, even though it wasn't raining. And she wasn't moving, just staring up at the camera with this completely blank expression. I felt my stomach drop. I'd been watching that elevator car for the past minute. It had been empty the entire time. There was no way someone could have gotten in without me seeing them. The doors closed. The elevator started descending. I frantically cycled through the camera feeds, trying to see where she'd come from. Level 5 was completely empty. No cars, no people, nothing. The stairwell doors were all closed. The elevator reached level 2, my level. I was standing maybe 20 feet from the elevator bay, staring at the doors when they opened. The car was empty again. No woman, no wet coat, nothing. I stood there for what felt like forever, just staring into that empty elevator car, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen on the camera. The doors closed. The elevator didn't move. I knew I should call the police, but what would I even tell them? That I saw a woman on a security camera who then vanished? Instead, I decided to check the garage myself, all 6 levels. I started on level 1 and worked my way up. Every floor was the same. Empty parking spaces, the hum of fluorescent lights, and that oppressive silence that only exists in concrete structures at night. When I reached level 5, I paused before stepping out of the stairwell. This was where the woman had been, somehow in that elevator. The level was just as empty as it had been on the camera. 14 parking spaces, all vacant, except for 2 cars parked at opposite ends, a silver sedan and a black SUV. Both of them had been there when I'd started my shift. I walked the entire floor, checking between the support columns, behind the cars, everywhere someone could hide. Nothing. I was about to head back down when I noticed something near the elevator doors. Wet footprints. They led from the elevator bay toward the far corner of the level, then just stopped, like whoever made them had vanished mid-step. The prints were small, definitely a woman's shoe size, and they were fresh. The water hadn't evaporated yet. I followed them to where they ended, near a support column in the corner. There was nothing there. No hidden doors, no vents, no way out. Just concrete and shadows. That's when I heard the elevator chime again. I spun around and saw the doors opening on level 5. The car was empty, But as I watched, the interior lights flickered once, twice, then went completely dark. The doors closed, the elevator descended. I ran to the stairwell and practically flew down the stairs, taking them two at a time. When I burst back into the booth on level 2, I immediately checked the camera feed. The elevator was on level 1 now, doors open, and standing just outside the elevator, facing away from the camera, was the same woman. I could see the back of her dark coat, her wet hair. She was completely still. Then she turned around and looked directly at the camera. But here's the thing that made me feel like I was losing my mind. Her face was blurred. Not like a camera malfunction, but like someone had deliberately pixelated just her face in real time. Everything else in the frame was crystal clear, but where her face should have been was just this distorted, flesh-colored blur. She stood there for maybe 3 seconds, then walked out of frame. I cycled through every camera in the garage. She was gone. I spent the rest of my shift in the booth with the door locked, watching every camera feed like a hawk. The elevator stayed on level 1, doors closed, not moving. The woman never appeared again. When my replacement showed up at 6 a.m., I immediately told him everything. He looked at me like I was insane, but he agreed to check the security footage with me. We pulled up the recordings from the night. The elevator footage showed nothing, just an empty car going up and down, doors opening on empty floors. No woman, no blurred face, nothing. The timestamp was there, matching exactly when I'd seen her, but the footage showed something completely different from what I'd watched in real time. Even the wet footprints on level 5, when we went up to check together, were gone. The concrete was bone dry. My replacement suggested maybe I had fallen asleep and dreamed the whole thing, but I know I didn't. I know what I saw. I filed an incident report anyway, documenting everything. My supervisor called me that later and asked if I was feeling all right, if maybe I needed a few days off. He didn't believe me either. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. You're not the first person to report seeing someone in that elevator. Apparently, 3 years ago, before I started working there, a night attendant named Marcus filed a similar report. He'd seen a woman on the camera feeds who wasn't there in person. Dark coat, wet hair, blurred face. Marcus quit 2 weeks later. He told the supervisor that the woman kept appearing, night after night, always on different levels, always staring at the camera. The supervisor never told me this when I started the job. He said he didn't want to put ideas in anyone's head. I asked what happened to Marcus. The supervisor didn't know, said he moved out of state and they lost touch. I did some research on my own. Turns out, 15 years ago, a woman named Patricia Chen died in the Riverside Plaza parking garage. She was found in the elevator on level 1. Cause of death ruled as cardiac arrest. It had been raining that night. Her coat was soaking wet. The coroner's report mentioned something I can't stop thinking about. When they found her, she was facing the security camera in the elevator, and her eyes were wide open. I still work at Riverside Plaza. I need the money, and honestly, I keep telling myself it was just stress or a weird technical glitch with the cameras. But 2 nights ago, I was doing my 2 a.m. patrol on level 4 when the elevator arrived without me calling it. The doors opened, and inside was a dark coat, wet and crumpled in the corner of the car, like someone had taken it off and left it there. I didn't touch it. I didn't even step inside. I just watched the doors close and the elevator descend to level 1. It's still down there. I can see it on the camera right now, and I'm not going to check.
She had been washing the same load of clothes for 3 hours. When I finally went to check on her, the washing machine was full of mud and leaves, and she was smiling at me through the glass door. My name's Cassie, and about a year ago, I was working at a 24-hour laundromat called Spin City on the east side of town. I was 22, fresh out of community college with no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I took the overnight shift because it paid an extra $3 an hour. The job was simple. The laundromat was completely automated. Customers paid with cards or coins, did their laundry, and left. My only responsibilities were to sit at the front desk, keep an eye on things, restock detergent in the vending machine, and make sure nobody damaged the equipment or fell asleep in the chairs. The shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.,
And honestly, most nights were dead quiet. Maybe 5 or 6 customers total, usually shift workers from the hospital down the street or truck drivers passing through. Everyone just wanted to get their laundry done and leave. The laundromat had 12 washing machines and 12 dryers arranged in 2 rows, plus folding tables in the middle and a small seating area near the front windows. There were security cameras covering the main floor and the entrance, which I could monitor from a small office behind the desk. I'd been working there for about 4 months when this happened. It was a Tuesday night, mid-November, cold enough that the windows were fogging up from the heat inside. I'd clocked in at 11, done my walkthrough, and settled in behind the desk with my laptop to watch shows between customers. Everything was normal until around 1:45 a.m. The front door chimed, the automatic sensor we'd installed, and a woman walked in. She was probably in her 40s, wearing a long gray coat that looked soaked through, like she'd been standing in the rain. Her hair was plastered to her head, dripping water onto the tile floor as she walked. The thing is, it wasn't raining that night. It hadn't rained in almost a week. She didn't acknowledge me at all, didn't make eye contact, didn't say hello. She just walked straight to washing machine number 7, the one in the far back corner, and started loading clothes into it. I watched her on the camera for a minute. She was moving slowly, almost mechanically, pulling items from a black garbage bag and shoving them into the machine. I couldn't see what she was washing from the camera angle, but something about the way she moved made me uneasy. She paid with cash at the coin slot, started the machine, and then sat down in one of the plastic chairs directly across from it. Just sat there, staring at the machine as it filled with water. Okay, I thought. Weird, but not that weird. People do laundry late at night all the time. About 30 minutes later, I noticed she was still sitting in the exact same position, staring at the washing machine. The cycle should have been done by now. Our machines run for 35 minutes. But when I checked the system, machine 7 was still running. I pulled up the camera feed and zoomed in. The woman hadn't moved. She was sitting perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, eyes locked on the machine. And that's when I noticed the water on the floor. There was a huge puddle spreading out from underneath machine 7, dark water seeping across the tile toward the drains. That wasn't normal. Our machines didn't leak. I got up from the desk and walked over to check on her. "Excuse me," I said as I approached. "I think your machine might be malfunctioning. There's water on the floor." She didn't respond, didn't even turn her head. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw what was inside the washing machine. It wasn't clothes. The machine was churning with mud and leaves, and what looked like pieces of fabric so shredded and filthy I couldn't tell what they'd originally been. The water inside was completely black, almost like oil, and it was sloshing against the glass door with every rotation. "Ma'am, what are you washing?" She finally turned to look at me. Her eyes were completely bloodshot, like she hadn't slept in days, and she was smiling. Not a friendly smile, something vacant and wrong. "I have to get them clean," she said in this flat, monotone voice. "I have to get them clean before morning." "Get what clean?" She didn't answer, just turned back to stare at the machine. I backed away slowly and went back to the desk. This was way above my pay grade. I called my manager, but it went straight to voicemail. Of course it did. It was 2:30 in the morning. When I looked back on the camera, the woman was standing now, pressed up against the glass door of the washing machine, her face inches from it. She was still smiling. The machine was still running. It had been over an hour now. I decided to call the non-emergency police line. I told them there was someone acting strangely at the laundromat and that I didn't feel safe. They said they'd send an officer to check it out. While I waited, I kept watching the woman on the camera. She hadn't moved, not from that spot, face pressed against the washing machine door, hands flat on the glass like she was trying to reach inside. The puddle of dark water had spread across half the floor now, and I could see it was thick, not like regular water at all, more like mud or sewage. Then the machine stopped. The sudden silence made me jump. The constant churning noise had been going for so long that when it finally quit, the laundromat felt eerily quiet. The washing machine door. The smell hit me immediately, even from across the room. It was rancid, like rotting garbage mixed with wet earth. I actually gagged. She started pulling things out of the machine, but I couldn't see what they were from the camera angle. She was placing them carefully into the black garbage bag, one item at a time. I should have stayed behind the desk. I should have waited for the police, but something compelled me to get closer to see what she was washing. I walked across the laundromat, my shoes squelching in the dark water pooling on the floor. As I got closer, I could see what she was pulling from the machine. Children's clothes, small shirts, tiny pants, a pink jacket. All of them were caked in mud and shredded like they'd been buried for months. "Ma'am, what is this? Where did these come from?" She turned to look at me again, and this time her smile was wider. "They're not clean enough yet. I need to wash them again." Before I could respond, she started loading the clothes back into the machine, the same filthy, shredded children's clothes. She fed quarters into the coin slot and started another cycle. Then she sat back down in the plastic chair and resumed staring. I ran back to the desk and locked myself in the office. I called 911 this time, told them it was urgent, that something was seriously wrong. While I waited, I watched her on the camera. She never moved, never blinked, just sat there staring at that machine as it churned the same load of muddy, destroyed children's clothes. The police arrived maybe 10 minutes later, 2 officers. I met them at the door and explained everything as quickly as I could. When we walked back to washing machine 7, the woman was gone. The machine was still running, water still pooling on the floor, but she'd vanished. Her garbage bag, her coat, all of it gone. One of the officers opened the washing machine to stop the cycle. It was completely empty. No clothes, no mud, no leaves, just clear water. But the floor was still covered in that dark, thick water. It was real. We all saw it. The officers searched the entire laundromat, checked the bathrooms, looked outside. There was no sign of her. After the police left, I spent the rest of my shift cleaning up the water. It took me almost 2 hours to mop it all up, and the smell lingered days afterwards. I filed an incident report with my manager, but I could tell he didn't really believe me. The security footage didn't help. When we reviewed it the next day, you could see the woman walking in and sitting down, but the camera angle made it impossible to see what was inside the washing machine. And when she left, there was a 3-second gap in the footage where it went to static, and then she was just gone. I tried to convince myself it was just some disturbed woman doing weird laundry at 2 a.m. People do strange things. Maybe I imagined how bad it smelled. Maybe my mind played tricks on me about what I saw. But then I did some research. I searched for news stories around the area of Spin City, anything involving children or missing persons, and I found something that made my blood run cold. 7 years ago, a woman named Helen Garrett lived in an apartment building 2 blocks from the laundromat. She had 2 children, a boy aged 6 and a girl aged 4. One morning in November, both children were found dead in the woods behind the building. They'd been buried in a shallow grave, their bodies covered in mud and leaves. The police investigation determined they'd been dead for at least 3 days before being discovered. Helen Garrett was arrested and charged with their murders. During the trial, witnesses testified that she'd shown signs of severe mental illness in the weeks leading up to the deaths. She'd been seen wandering the neighborhood at night, talking to herself, washing the same load of children's clothes over and over in the building's laundry room. She was convicted and sent to a psychiatric facility. 3 months ago, she died there. The date of her death? November 9th. The night she appeared in my laundromat, November 12th. I quit Spin City 2 weeks after that night. I couldn't go back there. Couldn't sit in that office knowing what I'd seen. The laundromat is still operating, still 24 hours, and they hired someone else to take the overnight shift. I ran into them at a coffee shop a month ago. They asked me why I'd quit so suddenly. I didn't tell them. What was I supposed to say? But I did ask them one question. Has anyone ever used washing machine number 7 late at night? A woman with wet hair? They stared at me for a long moment. Then they said, "How did you know?"